Hey, what is up, Panda fam? Yeah. We're back again with the episode 5 review series of Picard, the Picard Star Trek series. I'm with my co-host, Grant Sabo. We are rocking and rolling on into the evening here. We are just relaxing. I do apologize for the lateness on the podcast, but we try and coordinate our schedule as best as we can. It's a big boy over here, and he's got a lot of personal things he's got to take care of on a daily basis. I'm a big boy, and I got a lot of shit I got to take care of, too. So we make it work when we can for you, Panda fam. So
Interestingly enough, the apology might not be necessary, as our best podcast ever as far as viewers go was super late at night. So
that's very true. So it's a good point.
So maybe you're welcome.
Maybe you're welcome, everybody. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, thank you all for coming on out and joining us today. It looks like you became a supporter of the page for 4 months. Thanks for that, buddy.
Quite welcome.
Thanks for supporting what we do here.
Yeah, I got the notification on this morning.
Coming on and hosting with me for the Star Trek Picard review series.
Whatever, pay, what is this? Oh.
I get that too sometimes where I look and I'm like, what the hell is this for? Oh, right. The support that I'm providing to other streamers right now. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. Me and my homie here gonna kick this off. Last week, well, like I said, I think we're done with the Tabor says, Panama dude, did you see they're making a Borderlands movie? I did see that Eli Roth is going to direct that. I commented to my buddies who posted it in my DM group that I was like, listen, there's already a Borderlands movie out. It's called Mad Max Fury Road. Just go watch it. All right?
Yeah.
That's an awesome movie. And if you're a fan of like mayhem and destruction, like Mad Max Fury Road, awesome movie.
Not to be confused with Mad Men.
Not to be confused with Mad Men, that's correct. So anyway, Scotty, thank you for the like. Tabor, thank you for the like. Dennis, thank you for the like and the share on the stream. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again this evening. We'll be reviewing episode 5 of the Star Trek show Picard, which has been a nice, refreshing take on the next generation. And I think we got honestly, there's something about in this episode that I wanted to touch on, something 7 of 9 says as we get into the episode that I want to come back to. So I want to remember this point. How it kind of crystallizes that this is not your father's Next Generation series. And there's something that she says in it that kind of almost explains to people, like, this is why talking and negotiating just doesn't work anymore in this universe.
Yeah. And you called that out specifically in the last 2 podcasts as well.
Correct. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But I want to go ahead and, we've gone through 4 episodes of the show, and we kind of both felt a little bit of the rising action happen last episode. Now, I wouldn't necessarily, I said that this episode would be kind of a mid-season climax. Patrick Stewart is a god. He literally is the man. Yes, he is.
You are quite correct.
We are not worthy. I mean, not only in this episode, you get to kind of see his chops a little bit. I mean, he pulls off a French accent. He kind of pulls off like the I'm scandalous and villainous. Mwahaha.
Yeah,
it's a fun part of the episode.
Yeah, there's this episode has everything from a little bit of silliness.
Yeah, it does.
From him to some like hardcore drama parts. And here is a little Easter egg shout out. His name is Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah.
He's from France. Initially, they had him read for that part with a French accent.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Don't want to get copyrighted. Turtle power. Keep going. What'd you say, buddy?
I don't remember. Oh, they had him read for the part of Picard in a French accent and with a toupee.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then they said, like, oh, don't wear that toupee. And then they were like, actually, don't talk with a French accent either. Don't do either of those things.
Don't do any of those things. Yeah. That's poor choice. Let's not go to Camelot. To the silly place.
To the silly place.
Let's not make you actually French. To the silly thing. But anyway,
but you got to hear it today. There's actually video out there of him reading for Picard with a French accent.
I need to find this video.
Yeah, it's funny, but you essentially saw it today.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true. Good one, Dons. Hey, what's up, Court? Good to see you, buddy. Anyway, so the other thing that I want to mention about that too, you said that this episode has a little bit of everything. The other thing that I noticed too is it actually does have a little tiny smidgen of that old TNG flavor, and I'm gonna
call it out when we get there.
I'm gonna tease it for even you too, because
we didn't talk about this.
I don't know that you know what I'm talking about.
No,
here,
I don't.
Isn't he like best friends with Gandalf? Yeah, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are like super besties, man. Like,
yeah, they chill.
Honestly,
really, if you're talking about him in the context of Patrick Stewart, I prefer you refer to him as Magneto.
and Professor X. I mean, come on. So anyway, this episode in particular, like we were talking about how the last episode has kind of a bit of a rising action, and it's not the mid-season climax that I was personally hoping for. In that it wasn't like super action packed, but there was a lot of things to unpack about this episode. Like it was a very linear kind of storyline with this episode, but there were a lot of like, if this is the through line, there's a lot of things that kind of dovetail off of that, like, and can go a whole bunch of different places.
And also, in spite of the fact that we've got all this dovetailing, not one scene on the artifact.
Also a good point. And you know what? It's funny you say that, because the last couple episodes I felt like have been more focused on the Picard side of the story with very little to do with the artifact. Now, I feel that's the case because we're kind of... I don't want to say we've closed the book on that particular chapter. By the way,
there's not much. What are you going to do? It's like, oh, we're falling in love. Oh, don't forget that she's the enemy.
Right, like, then that's
like,
it.
How much time can you spend like proving those 2 points?
Yeah, like hammering that like beating on that horse.
So I'm fine with them developing the Picard story while
100% agree with that, and I agree with that because the show is about Picard. I mean, let's be honest here. He should be the driving factor of the show, but
it's named for him.
But from this episode specifically, like, I'm happy they've developed these characters because now you're starting to get subplots here. You're starting to get, and we'll talk about this as we review the episode.
Provides depth.
Exactly. We're starting to get some character subplots. You kind of already knew about Rafi a little bit, her and her backstory with Picard and
that, but not the other side that we shall get into.
Right. It's been hinted at. It's been hinted at since we first met her in episode 2. But we will get into that. But I'm talking about Rios. We're talking about I'm not even gonna know up to Girardi. Oh God, we're not even gonna go there. Best friends with Gandalf. Yeah, already talked about. Rios. We've got Girardi. We've got Rafi. The only real story development that we don't get or like subplot, and I don't think he's really supposed to have much of one apart from what we got in episode 4 is Elros or Elnor.
Oh, we learned that he is exceedingly naive.
Oh, well, I mean, when you grow up on one planet, you don't
like raised by nuns.
Yeah, raised basically by like assassin nuns.
Yeah, but like I didn't get that he was adult in the last episode, and there was a bit of that in this one.
What do you mean?
Where he's just like, "Oh, we'll talk about it."
Sure. We'll get into that. Anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes of episode 5, which is...
I love meat and potatoes.
I do too, which is called Stardust City Rag, which has kind of it does have that kind of sleuthy feel to it at the beginning of it, and then as we develop...
little Dixon Hill nod kind of thing.
Develop through the episode, it devolves into something, or evolves, or turns into something completely different. John, thank you for the like. Lady Panda, thank you for the like on the stream.
It's dynamic.
It's very dynamic indeed. So we're going to start with the very first scene here, which is, and we talked about this in the last couple of episodes, how each one of these episodes has started off with a flashback sequence, except for episode 1, which was a dream sequence.
Yep.
Now, I made a quick note here to talk about how I think personally that each one of these, the dream sequence or the flashbacks, focuses on, I think, the main story of the particular episodes.
And that makes the most sense.
Right.
Yeah, because the first one was the dream.
Right.
And with Dater.
And it all had to do with his daughters and them kind of, discovering who they are. One of them, anyway.
Yeah. 2 was the attack on Mars.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other ones were Picard centric.
Right.
Flashbacks. It was Rafi and Picard.
And you saw the dynamic between her in that particular episode where she, he goes to her for help, and she basically like says "F you," and then is like, "All right, I'll help you," and this is where I'm going to throw in the first little thing too. Like, this is kind of where we get our first hint at the other thing with Rafi, with her little pen and her thing with her, like, I don't know what, like, she's like it's like she's
snake leaf or something,
snake leaf or something like that. But
she's on the drugs.
You get kind of a hint of it at that, like, and when you first see Rafi as a character, you're like, okay, she's his security officer. Like, she had a relationship with Picard. She was part of Federation. Like,
not a relationship.
But this is, well, I mean, she calls him JL, so it's more of a
like,
right. But it's more of a personal, like, it's more personal than any other, like, captain and a senior officer that I've seen on Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she has kind of
other than when he was banging Crusher, but
yeah, sure. Anyway, so Kayla, thank you for the like on the stream, by the way. So anyway, I digress. I'm getting kind of off topic here. So basically, all of these episodes have started with either a flashback or a dream sequence, and for me, and like you said, Grant, is that, hey, what's up, Ed? Thanks for the like on the stream. We're basically talking about, he was Deep Space in her 9, eh? Cheers, Tabor. So, we're talking about all these flashback and the dream sequence, and how it kind of is a kind of a look into what the main interaction or the driving storytelling points are for the episode. And it's not much different in this episode with 7 of 9.
Correct.
Now, for those of you who who watched last week or who watched the episode, you'll know that it ended with that reveal of 7 of 9. She was in the ship that kind of helped them bust out.
Yeah, we've known that she's going to be in the show for some time. She was in the previews very early on. We said, like, well, Romulan are experimenting with Borg technology. We saw some scenes from the artifact. We saw that she was involved, so we figured this involves the Borg somehow, and it makes sense for a legacy character like that to be in it. They weren't bringing legacy characters back as fan service. They're bringing them in to help develop the plot, and I believe that's exactly what they did in this case.
I would agree with that. And it's not like she was ham-fisted into the story either. They give a very good...
they develop
detailed.
That. Sure.
Not only do they give, and it'll lead into my point that I was talking about how this isn't your father's next generation. They give she gives a good couple of, like, 2 or 3 lines of how, like, she came to be doing what she's doing. She's a Ferengi Ranger, we find out. And she's trying to keep, like, keep some sort of order.
Ferengi?
What is it?
No.
What is it? No, she's not a Ferengi.
No.
Fenris
Ranger.
Sorry,
yes.
not a...
I'm like, what? Did I miss that?
Wow, that was a total slip. Not a Ferengi, excuse me. What does it say? Fenris. Sorry,
like a wolf.
Fenris, like a wolf. Yes, Fenris Rangers. And it's this group that goes around and I guess maintains order amongst chaos, and it's alluded to a little bit later in the episode. We'll talk about it, that, they kind of uphold justice by taking the law into their own hands, sort of thing. So she's kind of an outcast. Like, she's kind of riding the outer sort of
circling the outer rim.
There, yeah.
No, she
Bloody Yo, what's up, buddy? Thanks for liking the page and the personal, dude.
Well, it makes sense that she didn't like the abandonment of the Romulans by the Federation.
Sure.
She was kind of in the same boat as Picard.
Right.
The people needed looking after, and so she joined the Rangers ostensibly for that reason.
Now, I just had a thought here. Would you consider her kind of Picard's mirror in a way? Because everybody's been accusing him of doing nothing after that evacuation failed and everything, whereas she kind of went out, and even though she's not, she's not going about it by Federation standards by any means. She's going out and doing something about
Federation principles.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, there's no there's no bad intent behind what 7 of 9 is doing here.
Well, and Picard even says like, "Oh, you guys,
awesome, but like I don't agree with you taking the law into your own hands."
Right.
Exactly. So anyway, again, I digress. I apologize. The reason I'm talking about this is because the first scene that we get here on planet Vergessen, the Hypatia system, is she essentially is like infiltrating, I believe, like a Borg reclamation site.
Yeah, so there's a group of people who I guess Borg parts are valuable, and that makes sense. When Borg are killed, even as far back as the Next Generation, 1993, they take key components off those Borg before they zip back over to the cube.
Right. So that's I mean, some people might argue like, why, what's this black market for Borg parts? But there's actually canon behind this. Yeah. So the Borg themselves would take those parts.
Yeah. I just thought of that right now.
Yeah, I remember that though. That's a good point. So anyway, excuse me. The first scene that we get is her basically infiltrating, I believe, a reclamation center, like kind of a black, almost seems like a black market, sort of a thing. And what we see is actually a pretty gruesome scene of, and I didn't show the actual guy like basically getting his eye gouged out, because like they of all Star Trek I've ever seen, like that's the most, like I was like squeamish through it.
Yeah, no, it was like it was something.
Dude yelling and stuff, and his eye basically getting drilled out of his head without any anesthetic.
Well, yeah, and then they show like the actual eye plucked out. It wasn't Hitchcock here. I mean, this was John Carpenter. They were showing everything.
Right. So the picture that you see up there is basically the blood splatters on the person who's operating on this Borg, the spatters, and taking this dude's eye out. And
this dude is not just a dude.
Exactly, which we'll find out. Yeah. We'll get into, I think, a little bit later, because you're right. He's not just a dude. Because 7 of 9 busts in, they hear gunfire, and all of a sudden this lady says the name Bjayzl, which I don't know about you, but through the entire episode, and when I finally saw who Bjayzl was, I was like, first of all, your name sounds like Bedazzle or Vajazzle or something. Yeah. And then I saw what she was dressed in that episode. Because when you first meet Bjayzl, like you kind of see like her upper body. And then and we'll get into this, you get her full reveal at a certain point in the episode. And I'm like, whoa, now you really like, first of all, what the hell are you wearing?
I didn't notice this.
And second, like, really? How did you not notice it? It was like a skin suit of diamond things that were just like skin tight with like the shoulder pads.
Oh no, I did see that. No. I thought you were hinting at something else.
No. What I'm saying.
I did see that. Okay, yeah, she looked like Vegeta, but like bedazzled.
But bedazzled Vegeta. Yeah, she's bedazzled, bedazzled. I don't.
She's Bjayzled.
Exactly, and that
her name's appropriate.
Her name's appropriate is what I'm getting at. But Bjayzl. And I was like, you sound like you've been bedazzled as a person. And sure enough, I saw her walk out in that scene. And I was like, your name is perfect. Your name is perfect. I hope I got a picture of that, because it's hilarious. But anyway, this female calls out Bjayzl, and then you see 7 of 9 like shooting people, and she comes running in, and we find out that this person's name is Ichabed. And she calls him like her child.
Yeah, so basically 7 of 9 was a Borg in the Delta Quadrant. So was this guy. They were both kind of saved by Voyager. He came back to the Alpha Quadrant with her and like grew up.
Right. Which she gets into. Yeah. She does mention later in the episode.
Yeah, but like they've been besties for some time.
Yes.
Like close, like family.
To the point where she considers him, like she calls him kin later on in the episode or whatever. The closest thing she has to kin. So essentially they torture this guy for his Borg parts is what we're seeing here. 7 of 9 comes in.
Where's your ocular? I know it's in there.
Yeah, like they're literally like, oh, where is it?
Not that eye.
Oh, not that eye. Well, all right, I guess we had to drill into the other one. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, seriously, first kind of time like you really kind of see the like this nitty gritty, like, again, this isn't your father's the next generation sort of thing. And this is again Seven of Nine coming in to try and save him and figure out like, and he just basically like, no, just go, leave me,
kill me,
just kill me, please. And she gives him the benefit of
the sweet release.
The sweet release. So, and then we get this kind of ominous looking picture as they zoom out from that. And we go into the opening credits of a bunch of Borg parts that look like they've been reclamated from Borg, and it's just like one of those things where it's just like, what the fuck is going on now in the galaxy, man? Like, you've got this artifact that is reclaiming, Borg, which is good, but then you've got the dark side of this, which is these sorts of places that are harvesting Borg parts for like black market sales and stuff because they're valuable and whatnot. So it's just, again, you get kind of like a little shudder down your back when you're like, you think about this and you're like, yeah, man, like Picard is, that's why I said last week, like Picard is a little bit out of his depth in the first few episodes. And then I think as we go through episode 4 in this episode, and we'll see again in the next episode, because we start to hear more of his, like he goes through this and he's like options again, and he's like looking at all of his people like he's like, give me your options, like what do we got? Like he's the captain of the ship again, you know what I mean? But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. We get the next scene after the opening credits of our city, Free Cloud, that we've been talking about basically since episode 1.
Never find such a scum and villainy.
And you can tell too, like it's you know what it's got to me? It's got that what's it called? The cantina vibe from fucking Star Wars.
I just said.
What?
When they come up on Mos Eisley, he says, "You'll never find."
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hub of scum and villainy.
I thought that was something from this episode,
no,
or like one of the previous Star Trek episodes. Anyway, yeah, dude, like
Mos Eisley.
It reminds me of that a lot. I mean, you get like the popped up ads for everybody when they come and visit it and everything. It's just it has a very kind of a Star Wars vibe. Yes, that's I don't know what the proper politically correct term is, but that's like small person Lady Gaga right there playing on her piano.
He said that like 20 minutes ago.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he said he went under Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, and then he said Lady Gaga when we were talking about Vijay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't even realize that. So anyway, we get speaking of, and this is where we get like the full reveal. Like, tell me that doesn't look like bedazzled Vegeta right there. Yeah. Like, especially with the shoulder pads.
Yeah.
But anyway, the important thing about this scene is this is our first kind of look at Maddox.
Looking a little haggard.
Looking definitely haggard. He mentions that someone has busted up his lab.
Yeah, like exploded it.
Like melted it down to nothingness, basically. He said there's literally nothing left. So he's coming to her because I guess she gave him some sort of loan or some sort of front for this, or perhaps protection to work in secrets.
Yeah, he owes her money.
He owes her something.
Whatever he was creating in the lab was going to get him money. Now that the lab is destroyed, he is very worried that he can now no longer pay her back. But rather than run, he goes straight to her, which, like, I don't know about this guy's street smarts.
Well, I think, I see where you're going with this. I think that's almost justified towards the end of the episode, and I'll tell you when I think that is. I won't say it's great writing, but I'll say they at least explain it via a passive other character's actions.
And they could do that. That's fine.
But I mean, the guy's intelligent. Like, why would you run to a black market dealer? Why would you do that? Like, I kind of see the point. Like, it's a stupid move on his part, for sure.
I mean, unless he's just like that good of a guy. But usually that good of a guy doesn't go on the lam from his lady friend.
Yeah.
If that's actually what happened.
Right. Dun, dun, dun. What's up, Wadu? Thanks for the like. He said, "Stop. What's up, man? Just stopping in to show some love." That's Vegeta's dream bride, Bulma. We just was just a stand-in for Vajaxel. Yeah, that's Bulma right there for sure. So anyway, he goes running to her, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, like I'm not gonna be able to like pay that loan back." And her initial reaction to finding out that he was there was to kill him right away.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Nah, wait a minute. We're gonna like barter him to the Tal Shiar." And so
and that's when she finds out that he thinks it was the Tal Shiar that blew up the lab. So
and then she's like,
"Oh, really then?
Oh,
well, that changes things.
That kind of changes things.
You were gonna die. Now, no.
Now, no, you're not." So she offers him a beverage. The beverage is clearly drugged as he passes out in the episode, and that's all we see of him for now. So back to the ship. 7 of 9 is recovered from her near-death experience last week, where she helps Picard and the crew get out of a jam-a-lam, to say the least, and kind of gets her ship jam-a-lammed up in the process.
She does, yeah. She comes in. There's like a old school TOS era Romulan warbird chasing them down.
Yep.
They're having a rough time getting away from that, plus planetary defenses. 7 of 9 comes in, saves the day. They beam her out on board right as her ship hits the protective barrier and explodes.
Mm-hmm. And then she passes out.
She's good now.
She's good now. That was the end of the last episode. So she's good. She comes into Picard's quarters. We get the traditional come. And this is where we get the interaction that we see in the trailer, where she's asking what he's doing out here. We all thought it was actually at the chateau, but come to find out it's this holodeck that he has on the ship.
Yep.
And she's on it with him, talking to him about. And this is where we get the interaction, between him and her with the Fenris Rangers. Talking to her about like what she's doing out there. She's asking Picard what the hell he's doing out there.
And this is the first time in the show that you see how much she's grown.
Oh yeah,
because of course on Voyager, the entire
cheers, Adam. Thanks for the like, buddy.
4 seasons that she was on there, she was very Borg-like, very proper. She spoke like Data essentially. Like she's very just Borg-like. Now there is no hint of that.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
Like, the hell you doing out here, Picard? You old son of a bitch.
Give me a bourbon, straight up.
Yeah.
Slams it. Then she's like, I'll have another one. Like, after he kind of tells her
much like our apple juice.
Yes, much like our apple juice. After he kind of tells her what's going on, she's like, what are you looking for out here, Picard? And he basically tells her,
Looking for love in all the wrong places.
Love in all the wrong places. So this is kind of where we get this is where I wanted to bring it back to that little bit, and it's kind of explained in this very general way of this is not your father's next generation sort of. I keep saying that, but it's really not. It's a dystopian sort of a thing, not a utopia. And he kind of chastises her for taking the law into her own hands, but is also kind of in favor of what she does. Like, I support what you do. It just, if you guys didn't
your methods.
Just your methods kind of suck. And she's like, what law? Like, there is no law out here like anymore. Ever since,
what is he? He's just point taken, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. I mean, I think this is it's a small moment in the show, but I think it's a very poignant one in that.
It could be a big character development moment
for him.
Yeah, exactly.
For him,
that's exactly what I mean, because he's starting to see.
Like, okay, like,
it's been 15 years.
I can't just Jean-Luc my way out of situations most of the time now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's refreshing, because even now, even 20 years removed from the next generation, like, let's take a fourth wall look at this here. Like, Patrick Stewart is still finding ways to develop this character. Mm-hmm. Like, let's laud the actor for what he's able to do with that. Second, from an in the show kind of perspective, it's Picard coming to terms with, like, this is a different world than the one that I left, and he's kind of, I don't want to say he's bumbling his way through it, but he's he's kind of playing this as he goes, which is never really how
it's not his style.
It's not his style, you know.
So everything's very measured. Everything's very thought out.
So he's kind of learning. He's learning on the fly here, which to me is brilliant. That
and we the audience have never seen him do this. I mean, he obviously did, probably when he was in command of the Stargazer and coming up and things like that. You know, he invented his way. He invented the Picard maneuver. He thought his way out of shit, but you know, there was a lot of, I'm sure, learning along the way. But by the time he got to be the captain of the Enterprise D, he was pretty polished.
It's almost a weird, twisted origin story for Picard, because like, you're right, like he probably went through these sorts of things and that formed and shaped him into the captain he was for the Next Generation, and now he's going again through, I wouldn't call them similar trials or whatever.
No, but he has to relearn because the playing field has changed.
Correct. So that's an interesting point to draw on, and again, this is mentioned a little bit later in the episode, and I think maybe now that I've said this, you know where I'm going to towards the end of the episode that I'll mention later, where it's kind of restated, this whole what law, and I take, you know, the galaxy isn't what it used to be, and the Federation isn't what it used to be, and all this other stuff. So, but anyway, I don't want to stick on that point for too much. So after this scene, we go back to Rafi and Rios talking about how, you know, 7 of 9 is who she is, and Rios is like, oh, she's that, you know, or from the Data Quad or from the Delta Quadrant. That's a Fenris Ranger. He's like, oh, how about this cargo you brought aboard? Like, can you tell me about it? And she's like, tell me about it, man. Like, just you know, we've got 80-year-old Picard, and we've got crazy-ass 7 of 9, and it's just, like I said, this episode is very linear in its storytelling, but there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. Like,
yeah, and she's the first legacy character to be brought back, isn't she?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Besides Data in the dream at the beginning, but that's
a
dream, so you can't really technically say he's been brought back because he's dead. So, but anyway, so we get this conversation between Rafi and Rios. We talk about what 7 of 9 and what they have to talk about. And then the next scene, after I went back and rewatched after the first watch through, and I got all the way to the end, this scene now hits me in a much different way. The one with Girardi watching the hollow of Maddox. So you know, when you're watching this episode, you know, she's obviously, they're there to get Maddox, and she's got a connection to Maddox. Not one that's been very overstated, and I've got to give credit to this actress for playing this as she has.
Yeah.
So far, like I gotta tell you, Panda Fam, like we'll get to it eventually, but the end of this episode was like, what?
Yeah, no.
What?
Major Twist City. And I didn't, when I watched it literally first thing when I woke up. Like, I was watching this in the shower.
And you were probably like,
yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. No,
that was you washing in the shower.
I gathered. But when I sent you a message knowing full well that you were still asleep.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to say too much.
But
so I didn't. I was like, some different stuff here, twisty turns.
Well, you were like, this like the twists, but not the way that I thought.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
yeah,
because the way that they showed the preview of the next episode, they've been give credit to the marketing team for really kind of throwing people off. Like I said with the preview with 7 of 9, we thought that was the chateau. It turns out he was really in space. And then the preview from last week made it seem like just a kind of an in and out like extraction, and that's at its core that's what it was. But there was so much more to this episode than just that. And give credit to the marketers and all that stuff for
the only thing that I
on the wraps.
Wish they would have done is not blow their load on all the legacy characters that they brought back.
That's a good point.
Maybe I hope that they kept a couple close to their chest that we don't know are coming.
I mean, there's still the where's LaForge question hanging out there.
Yeah,
there's still the where's LaForge question hanging out there. So, and Worf too. I mean, we don't.
Russia.
No one ever said he's like, yeah. She was at the premiere too, which.
There was speculation if she's in it, then they've kept it extremely close to the chest.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like the only way that you could, you know, that you could infer anything from that was the fact that she was at the premiere.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you be at the premiere unless you're involved with the show in some form or fashion? You know what I mean? But again, there's no confirmation of her. I mean, we have nothing about LaForge, Worf. We only know that LaForge survived.
Yeah,
the attack, and that's it. That's all we know. So, I mean, a good. I really hope. And from what I've seen from this marketing team, I think we might still have someone. They still might have someone up their sleeve.
Yeah, they could very well.
I still think they have someone up their sleeve. But anyway, so we get this back to this episode. We get this scene with her watching a holo of Maddox making cookies, and it's kind of a nice little nod to who his character is too. Like, he replicates all of the ingredients to make chocolate chip cookies, but doesn't replicate the chocolate chip cookies themselves. And he's like, well, there's an alchemy, there's an art to making a good chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, and that could be seen as a metaphor for making an android.
Making an android, right. You know, you can replicate things, but actually getting your hands into it and yeah, that's a good point that you bring up there.
Yeah. So this is very reminiscent of, did you ever watch the episode of The Next Generation called Future Imperfect? Where Riker gets captured, like he's on a planet or whatever, and so he's in like this simulation, and like he wakes up and he's like the captain of the Enterprise.
I might remember
like
that.
Dead, and he's got a kid, and he named the kid Jean-Luc, and like he's like negotiating with the Romulans.
I don't remember that episode.
Oh, but it's a good one. But anyway, so in it, he's watching home movies of him and Minuet, who is supposed to be his wife. Minuet wasn't real, and that's how he realizes that it's a simulation. And then so the simulation continues where like the Romulans are like trying to extract like information from him and the kid Jean-Luc, but he was also real. And so then they like break out, and then he realizes that that's a simulation too, and that Jean-Luc kid was actually just like an alien who was lonely and his mom left him on the planet, and so they end up beaming up at the end. But yeah, there's like layers and layers to it. It's a cool episode.
Inception, Star Trek.
It is, yeah. But with him watching the home movies of Minuet, this is what that reminded me of.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, we get an interaction between her and Maddox, and this is kind of the first that we know of. Like I said, props to Alison Pill for acting the shit out of Girardi. Like, like stiff nerd, like talks too much, like kind of overly, like she's what's the word I'm looking for? She's like quirky, like, but you know. There's no indication, none whatsoever through any of the previous episodes that her and Maddox were ever like, were ever intimately related.
Yeah, this is the first hint we get at that.
First hint that we get at that. Like,
and she's watching this like sobbing.
And it's not a hint. It's like they kiss in this scene. Like, there's no doubt. There's no doubt here that she and him had a relationship, which, again, now knowing how this episode finishes, makes me look at how she is reacting through the remainder of this episode much more differently than just being a scared scientist who doesn't know what she's doing out in space. Because that was my initial take from this episode.
Of course.
Was like, she's like, why are you freaking out this bad that and we'll get to this in just a second here, Panda Fam. But anyway, so we get the next the next scene of everybody getting their little ad pop-ups when they get to Free Cloud.
Yeah, this was awesome. So like, and every single one of them, they must read their minds, because they all gave them an ad that was directly, it was like literally pop-up ads like on the internet.
Yeah, Rios got like a one for a mechanic, because he's like, your shit's at 91% efficiency. Remember, we can blah blah. And he's like, and then Picard gets one for like some tea club or something. And then Girardi, and this is, I took a picture of this specifically because, again, this is what they've been hinting at this through these episodes. And again, this is another big hint that she has some sort of abuse problem, substance abuse problem.
You saw it right when you first walked up.
Sure, but I mean, like, you're 20 years removed from the Federation. You're living in a frickin' trailer, and you're basically retired, doing nothing but working off the land. Like, all right, like drink a beer, smoke a little bit of whatever it is you smoke. But this, like, I never honestly, like, it was hinted at, like, like in that episode, sure, like the snake leaf or whatever. And this is what I mean. Like, you get actual confirmation in this episode coming up. Like, it's very heavy-handed to you. Like, with this particular picture, she's posed with this ad, and it's like, come to pick your poison. Come to this dude's like
get your snake leaf.
Get your snake leaf or whatever. And she, she slaps it away or whatever. What's up, Ginge? Thanks for the like on the stream, by the way, buddy. So she slaps it away. I just want to take this quick picture because it's kind of a nice picture of the entire crew. You got Elnor in the back right there.
Oh, we didn't talk about Girardi's ad.
Oh, the punching guy.
Yeah, it's like a big like robot. And she's like, oh, God, what do I do? And they're like, you got to punch his head off. She's like, what?
What do you think that symbolizes? Because every one of the other things was reading someone's mind about something. And I'm wondering, like, does it show conflict within herself, maybe?
Yeah, like somebody that needs their confidence built up.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And it's like, what do you got to do? You got to punch his head off. And she, like, hammers it off.
Yeah, she was just like, wham, dude. Yeah. Like, it just...
Yeah, like the holographic head went flying.
Yeah.
But so the whole concept was really neat. It was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. And again, like, this is where I think the show has actually good writing, in the fact that obviously each one of those things read their mind and knows what they're looking for. So what does the punching guy mean? Does it mean inner conflict? Does it mean building up self-confidence? Like, this is a deeper look at what Girardi is going through. And if you again, on second watch, there's little crumbs that are placed in this episode as to what's coming towards the end. Like, they're not heavy-handed, but it's like something's got her worked up a little bit. And something's got her worked up. So anyway, we get a nice scene of them zipping into Free Cloud. They've basically got this plan concocted where they're going to go in, pose as I forget what she calls facers, that's it. They find out that Maddox is there, and this is there's kind of some very quick breezing some quick breeze over storytelling, writing at this point, where she's like, zip 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 zip. Okay, like, I got into the facers, old Starfleet intel trick, and it's just kind of like brushed aside.
Yeah, but like, do we really want 15 minutes of...
No, we don't. And we also kind of saw it too in the previous couple of episodes where Picard was giving her information. Like, you don't see him give her information like explicitly, but he's like, I'm sending you stuff on this and blah blah blah, and she's like looking stuff up and like,
yeah, she must be like very good at it. She's like oh, nobody knows where Maddox is except me, he's in Free Cloud, just found this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that particular thing and then this particular thing I thought were very like, okay, we just kind of have to accept that she must be really, really good at hacking shit. And she found him in an instant when nobody else could find him in 18 years.
Right.
And she also, like, knows everything that he's been into in the last, like, 2 to 3 weeks or month or whatever. Like, and nobody else does. So, like, again, she's a good hacker, but I think it's very quick storytelling at this point. Like, if I had a big issue with the specifics of this episode, that would be the one big thing that I would say. Like, okay, Starfleet, like, I'm good at this. I found cool. Now we can go.
Like I said, if they want to keep the action moving, I'll accept it.
Agreed. It's not like a massive, like, I'm not like, fuck this episode because of this one thing. No, I'm just saying,
not
like,
episode ruining.
When I saw that, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Okay. So anyway, we get a nice shot of Free Cloud, them zooming in here, and Rio's zipping on in as a facer, with
AKA a pimp,
AKA looking like a pimp.
He's pimping.
So his, like, the whole play here is that he's supposed to, like, broker the deal between Picard, who's like some scandalous villain with the big Borg technology. Like, I'm going to sell it to you. And he's supposed to, Rios's like little shtick here is he's supposed to broker this deal between Jazzle. Instead of her giving Maddox to the Tal Shiar, Picard's going to swoop in with 7 of 9, offer 7 of 9 in exchange for Maddox. So that's the play here. So this is Rio zipping on into Free Cloud to kind of get everything established here with the deal and everything. And he meets, what do they call him, a Delta and...
I don't know, lizard guy.
They call him Lizard Guy. It's like a Delta and something. I forget what the name of the race is. But
I missed it, but they said like he's a big lizard. He kind of looks like Thing from Fantastic Four.
And apparently can smell if you're lying or not.
Yeah, he's got like a gazillion receptors of...
And that's him. That's him in that picture right there. So yeah, he's got like 1,200 olfactory gene receptors, and can smell what you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, who you had sex with, and apparently if you're lying or not. So before all this happens, they shoot Rafi with some...
Not Rafi.
Or they shoot Rio, sorry.
Han Solo, yeah.
Han Solo. And this again is another indication of Rafi's...
ingenuity.
Both her ingenuity, but her substance abuse problem.
Oh,
she calls it Rafi's special or whatever that is.
Right.
And she zips him with a bunch of basically like Xanax and like...
It's like, what was that? He's like, you kick in right when you need it.
Kick in right when you need it. And it's sure enough in this episode, this guy...
His eyes go like...
Yep, they go, he's like, oh yeah, how do I smell now? We'll get to that here in a second. So he comes in, he meets Mr. Vup, who is the guy who is supposed to broker the deal from Bejazzle's side. And Bejazzle. I'm just going to call her Bedazzle from now on, because
we can do that.
That's what we're going to do. So, Bedazzled Vegeta, that's what we're going to call her. Bedazzled Vegeta. So he's supposed to broker the deal for Maddox on Bedazzle's side, and Rios is supposed to do it for Picard with 7 of 9. So he comes in and...
remembering that the Borg parts are very valuable.
Exactly. So
and she's got a lot of them because she was assimilated as a kid.
Right, which is... we get, obviously I think we get that in like Voyager, but you get detail into that in the next and later in the episode. So Vup is asking him about the Tal Shiar and what he thinks, and he's like, Tal Shiar suck the big one. And Vup's like, why are you representing them now? And he's like, actually, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. And he's like, whoa, bro, I don't like surprises, and pulls a gun on him. And basically that's when you find out, like, yo, bro, I can figure out when you're lying. So basically watch it, like, mind your next words before I blow your face off. So that's when the little Stim Rafi special kicks in, and he goes, woo, woo.
Goodness
oh
gracious.
My goodness! I went back to the beginning. I apologize.
That's okay. I would relive this hour with you.
We're close enough.
There we are.
So anyway, sorry about that, guys. I must have restarted it on accident there, the slideshow. But anyway, so he basically shows Vup, Mr. Vup, a hollow of the inside of 7 of 9, and the guy's like, no, that's not possible for anything like that to be alive. And he's like, how do I smell?
Yeah.
Truthful. Okay, let's continue the conversation essentially here. So this is Vup pulling the gun on our boy Rios there. Vup and our boy Rios getting palsy-walsy. And
Sinister
Picard. So we get flashbacks, and I like the way that they did this, because like it was going back and forth between the actual thing happening and Rafi kind of laying out what was supposed to happen, and
it was almost like a Boondock Saints kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And of course, you know who the director of this episode was?
Frakes.
None other than Commander Riker.
Commander Riker, exactly. So I really like this. She was like, I'm not really worried about Rios, I'm worried about you two guys. And Elnor, this is like kind of our first impression, like, that he's really naive. Like, he is really, really, really naive when it comes to the goings on of the galaxy and outside of the planet that he grew up on and that we met him on in the last episode. So we get this like a little interaction between Picard and Rafi and them, and they're beaming in and going to broker the deal, and Rafi basically handcuffs Seven of Nine with this like teleporter beacon that's supposed to create like some uninhibited tunnel between their position and hers.
Yeah, so they could get out of there whenever they want to.
Right, and it's not supposed to be detectable by scans.
Yeah, and by Elnor being naive, we mean that like he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you're being this person, you're being this person. He's like, the only person I could be is Elnor. And it's like, well, then you just be Elnor.
Then just be Elnor, and then Elnor that doesn't talk.
Yeah, and then it's like later on, like after their cover gets blown. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but he's like,
it's fine because I know where you're going.
He's like, oh, are we still pretending?
Yeah, like literally right out in the open with. And this is, I'm glad you mentioned that because we're eventually going to get to this part like really, really soon. So Picard, ends up bringing Seven of Nine in to kind of usher this deal.
Yeah, she's the bait.
She's the bait essentially. And we find out that Bedazzle is the one who is behind. Or Seven of Nine finds out, and Picard finds out. I guess everybody who's not us finds out that Bedazzle is the one behind the deal.
And it turns out that they've got quite the history.
And it turns out that Bedazzle and Seven of Nine have.
I almost got a vibe that they were like
lovers.
Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I got too.
Yeah. Because they call each other by their... So, like, everybody calls her Seven of Nine ever, but her human name was Annika. And that's what JJ calls her.
Right. And I think right then and there, Picard was like, oh, thanks for telling me the entire truth behind the situation. Like, and this is again, how, like, you could see it on Stewart's face during the scenes. He's like... How you not going to tell me the entire truth here, bitch? Like, Come on, man. Like, you got to be upfront and honest.
Well, he's not used to getting duped like that.
Right. And that's exactly what Bedazzle says to him. She's like, looks like you're the one who got played and you thought you were doing the play here.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, damn, man. Like, again, this is Picard who's just kind of getting one pulled over on him a little bit. And you get your little... This scene, again, you get your little TNG... part here where everybody starts talking to one another and all of the action de-escalates immediately for like a good 5 minutes. I was watching through this and I would say more so on the second watch through, I was like, if there's any part of this episode or any part of this series that's been like The Next Generation so far, it's this scene now.
Yeah.
There's no gunfire. There's only talking. She's allowed to like bitch on about how this Bedazzle person screwed her over, and we find out here that Ichabod is like he was a former Borg, and she basically
carved him up alive.
She basically carved him up alive and played Seven of Nine. Mm-hmm. Posing as someone that was helping, but actually she was getting information on these old
she was working with the Rangers, right?
Yeah, she was posing
right,
like she was working with the Rangers.
She was a poser.
Yeah, she was indeed a poser, and this is again she's Seven of Nine's allowed to just prattle on. Like normally people would get shot at this point. Like when the jig is up, like especially for that Mr. Vup guy too. Like this was another part I guess of the episode that didn't really jive too well for me, but it also kind of paid some respects to The Next Generation and its diplomacy approach to things. Like, all right, let's just talk this out. Like, you for me. Like, you exchange yourself Seven of Nine, and you can have Bruce Maddox, basically, and don't kill me. And this is also the other part where I felt Seven of Nine really kind of explained also. It was a weird duality that was working in this scene. At first, you get the TNG nod with all the talking and the de-escalation of the action. Yeah. But then you also get Seven of Nine mentioning that it's as soon as the evacuation ended and basically the crumpling of the neutral zone, like everything, like there is no neutral zone anymore. Like that's a big deal. And
huge deal. It was a massive plot device in a lot of episodes.
Right, like we're in the neutral zone.
It was literally the title of like one, I think, in Next Gen and in the original series.
So it was just a really interesting duality in this one. Again, there were very, very pointed scenes between Seven of Nine and Picard twice in this episode. The first time when he questioned her about being a Fenris Ranger, and she's like, "What law?" Yeah. And then it's further extrapolated upon in this scene when she's like, well, when the supernova evacuation basically ended, like, you guys abandoned it, the Federation abandoned it.
Yeah, not only did they abandon the evacuation, but they abandoned the people that they had already evacuated out of, like, these random planets, which you saw in the last episode, and then also Seven makes mention of here.
In a very deep sense, that's why I say, like, 7 of 9 is kind of the mirror character of Picard here, because Picard represents the Federation and what it used to be, and 7 of 9 represents everything that the galaxy has become, and the kind of taking the law into your own hands thing that Picard is still, I don't want to say struggling to accept, but is learning as he kind of goes here.
Yeah.
So from this, like, that's why I say at the beginning of the podcast tonight that this particular episode it's a very linear plot, but it has a lot to unpack to it as far as subliminal storylines and underlying character development and, little, subplots to it. We haven't even talked about Girardi and Maddox. We're getting to that point here. It's eventually.
We got the little tease, and that's been it.
Exactly. So, I mean...
And it's more Next Generation-y in that, the story in all of the Star Treks up to this point have been told through the point of view of the crew.
Right. And I will say...
And you very rarely get perspectives that it's just maybe one scene, and it's just to drive the plot if it's something not involving the crew. And here we had, like, a lot of perspectives that are from the artifact, that are from the villain side, that are from... And so this is kind of the first episode that doesn't do that.
Right. I would agree with that. You get very specific subplots to this. Like, you got the Girardi and Maddox thing going. You've also got the Girardi and Rios kind of whatever is going on between the two of them with their talks and her weird, awkward punches and all that kind of stuff.
And she might be playing him now.
Again, all of the things that we know now after this episode really makes me want to go back and watch her interactions with everybody all of the episodes.
We shook.
I know, it was.
I shook.
I'm shook, man. I was like, okay, first of all, awesome job, Allison Pill. Second, awesome job, writers, for keeping this one as close to the chest as they did.
Mm-hmm. That's good, Balan.
It's good. What's up, Balan? Good to see you, buddy. So anyway, back to these scenes. So they're discussing in 7 of 9, and she talks about the crumpled, the basically non-existent neutral zone, how there's lawlessness all over the place. And then this scene we get of Picard. Calvin, thank you for the like on the stream, dude. We get Picard and Raffi talking about why Raffi came to Free Cloud in the first place. Which, again, like, these are things that we haven't even touched on yet. We're talking about all these things, and we've just kind of been driving the main story aspect. So you come to find out that... See, what I initially thought from this scene was she was going because she was pregnant or something,
Right.
And then you come to find out that, well, I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately.
What's up, Calvin?
come to find out. Hey, Nick, thanks for the like on the stream, buddy.
What's up, J-Biz?
So you come to find out that this particular scene is her reuniting with her estranged son.
Or kiddo.
Sorry. And you get little hints throughout this episode. She's looking up someone named Gabriel Huang, or I have his name down here somewhere. Gabriel Huang. Yeah, that's his name. So she tracks him essentially to Free Cloud, and that's why she's along for the ride. Why she's along for the ride through these first 5 episodes. So she has an interaction with him. Obviously, does not go as she planned it to, and he basically accuses her of abandoning him and his dad or her husband,
right?
With this whole conspiracy thing.
Yeah, so this is the first hint that we really get at this.
Yes,
and I believe so.
Hey, Jack.
Well, no, that's a lie. It's not the first hint. It's the overt confirmation.
It's the overt confirmation that.
So. Yeah. And clearly Picard knew about this too.
Well, and she comes right into the thing and she's like, I'm clean now, like when she starts talking to him.
So there's an overt acknowledgement of the substance abuse issue, which is might or might not be true because she was hitting that snake leaf when Picard came over.
Yeah.
And, there was all that going on. But So she goes in, she explains the situation. I'm clean. I want to, restart a relationship with you. I feel terrible. And he basically goes on to berate her and say like how bad it sucked being her kid because she abandoned the family in favor of searching for this conspiracy theory, some like circle of 8 or something.
It's good apple juice.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. Good. Yeah, But some conspiracy theory involving the synths and
this
why
conclave,
they were
conclave of 8.
And there was all kinds of. So apparently she went digging for that, and like I said, Picard must have known about this because in order to get her to listen to him in their first interaction at her trailer, he says Romulan assassin squads are operating openly on Earth.
Right.
And she's like, God damn it.
Well, I'm sure she probably shared this information with him, back when they were doing the evacuations and stuff. And,
yeah,
I mean, from the comics and stuff, Picard has to know that there's some shit that's going because of how Loris and Shaban got him out of there and their ex-Tal Shiar.
But it appears like this happened after the synth attack, right? And after they got shit canned, and supposedly hadn't talked since then. But he knew to bring that up in order to get her to listen.
True. Good point.
There's Picard pulling a Picard.
Absolutely. So anyway, we get this exchange. We also get the first Romulan bowl cut.
Yes. Yeah.
The traditional Romulan bowl cut.
Yeah, she's all looking like a Romulan. So his wife pops out. She's way pregnant, and she's like, "Oh, is this your mom? Like, she gonna stay for a while?" And she's like, "No, she's just passing through." And Rafi's like, all right, I'm not going to fight it. But, like, she's the first Romulan to look like you would assume a Romulan looks.
Right, in all, TNG.
Right, stuff. Exactly.
So, yeah, we get, Oh, and also, you mentioned something to me earlier about, Terminator and Sarah Connor, and you wanted to...
Yeah, so...
kind of comes across...
To me...
A little bit?
She is a very Sarah Connor type character. She's got this conspiracy theory like Sarah Connor. She's very strong. There was something traumatic that happened to her when she was younger to kind of push her there. Yeah. Sarah Connor's probably got some substance abuse issues, as does this lady. Nobody believes her, just like nobody believes Sarah Connor.
Right, and she's also very insistent on it when questioned.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, I'm clean. I'm ready to start a relationship. She's like, not really concerned about the conspiracy theory anymore. No, he brings it up. He's like, so what about the Council of 8? And she's like, well, goddamn it, that's real.
I watched it again, and after you told me about that earlier this afternoon, and I was like, yeah, wow, yeah. Mm-hmm. The conspiracy's real!
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Well, the Earth is going to end on June 29th, 1997.
Unless you're wearing 6 million SPF sunblock.
Yeah, everybody's going to get a real bad tan.
Everybody's going to get a real bad sunburn. Yeah, no, she definitely has kind of that Sarah Connor vibe too. I just want to make sure you didn't forget to mention.
I was gonna. So thank you, Sarah
Connor. So we go back to Picard and 7 of 9, and we get the explanation here that 7 of 9 is named Annika. We get the exchange between her and
did I jump the gun on all that?
No. We just, this is where it happens. Like they're having their discussion, and that. When I mentioned she's allowed to kind of bitch about Annika, that was my TNG moment where talking is gonna win the day. Mm-hmm. However, and I'm happy it's 7 of 9 that does it, but we'll mention this in just a second. So they're talking about their exchange, and they end up getting 7 of 9 and Picard and Maddox out of there. I'm not really sure. Basically 7 of 9 grabs Bedazzled by her neck and is like, you're gonna listen to what I have to say now, bitch. And then they end up warping out of there because Mr. Vup has some shit up his sleeve, and then Rios blam blam shoots him because he went to go grab a drink at the bar after Picard dismisses him.
Right. Like your dismissal hand gesture.
Dismisses him. And at that point, Rios is like, you guys ready to get the hell out of here? And they end up zipping everybody out of there via teleport. So it was very very non-action. kind of thing.
Yeah, it was very TNG. As to your point, it's
Right.
like, oh, something almost happened, but we talked our way out of it.
But we talked our way out of it, and then Mr. Vup had something up his sleeve. But thankfully, Rios was there with a stun gun blaster to stop him, and let's get the hell out of here, guys. Like, very, very kind of laissez-faire, the way that they got through that whole part. However, and this is the scene with, 7 of 9, and this is what you were talking about earlier with Elnor, where he's like, oh, we're not pretending anymore.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, finally Picard's like, yeah, finally everybody's not pretending.
Yeah, all the chips
anymore.
are down.
All the chips are down on the table. So, he's basically telling her revenge is not the way to go. Revenge is not going to satisfy you. Rios looks at her and he's like, yeah, I get it.
Because he's a scoundrel.
He's
I like the sound of that.
Rios. So anyway, they zip on out of there, and before Picard leaves, basically 7 of 9 grabs blasters, and she's like, they have,
you ruined my ship, but could I have a couple of phasers?
Yeah. She basically, her and Picard have, and I thought this was a great conversation because this is our first mention in this series of, like, this whole episode was really the first mention or people bringing up how Picard was once a Borg.
Yeah.
And she turns around before she gets teleported back out and she asks him, like, do you feel human after, like, getting, like, taken back from the Borg? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, fully human? And he's like, but we try our best every day. And she's like, or he's like, we try our best, don't we? She's like, every damn day. And then she zips on out of there and proceeds to go ham.
She goes ham. That's exactly the word.
She proceeds to go ham.
Yep.
And just go, like, shoot up the entire, like, bar in Free Cloud. And she's got bedazzled, like, at the end of her gunpoint, and she's talking back and forth, and then she realizes that she's like, you're just stalling. Your second security force is going to be here in 5 seconds.
Yep.
Boom! See ya! Oh my god. So we did get
bedazzle that.
We did get the kind of, like, that satisfactory, like, I really hope you get your comeuppance, bitch, sort of moment.
Yeah, but it never happens in Next Generation, ever. But here
it does. Which is why I said this episode's got great duality to it, especially from the second half on, because of this particular scene. They talk their way out of it, get Maddox out of there. But then 7 of 9 is like, fuck this. I'm about to end this bitch.
Yeah.
And, like, zips down there, doesn't wait. She's like, she stops it. It's actually, like, I think it's almost like a meta nod to, like, the people who are like, talk, the Next Generation.
Yeah.
She basically is like, you're talking to stall. Blap.
Yep.
No more talking. You're done.
Yeah, done.
You're done.
That's for Ichiban.
You're done. And that's for Ichiban. Joseph, thank you for the like. Ichib, yeah. We keep calling him like Ichiban, like he's from the Sleepy Hollow or some shit.
Yeah,
Ichiban Crane or whatever.
No, it's Ichabod.
Ichabod Crane.
Ichiban, I believe, is a baseball player.
Ichiro?
Well, there's Ichiro, but I'm pretty sure there's an Ichiban too.
You're probably right. There probably is somewhere on some team, I think. Joseph, thanks for the like on the stream, buddy. I appreciate that. So yeah, we get basically 7 of 9 going ham, which we saw in the preview for the episode last week. But that's not the big. That's not the big holy.
Think it is.
You think that's the big holy shit moment,
but it turns out it's an anticlimax.
It's not. It's not the big holy shit moment, because here we have Maddox on the sick bay or whatever, sick bed. And Picard's asking him all these questions. And you know what? I'm going to let you take the explanation of this, because you explain it to, like, he's talking about Daj.
Yeah, so like there's a bunch of reveals that happen here.
Sure. Go ahead.
So he's talking to Picard, and like he's like, well, since you're here, like one of them's probably dead, right? And it's like, yeah, like, okay.
Which is a real astute pickup on his part.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit.
So he's like, all right. And then he mentioned something about the other one activating, and he's talking to Picard. He lets him know that So Picard says, yeah, Daj died. I'm sorry. Like, I tried my best.
We also find out here that the AI that we thought or that the person she was talking to in the first episode was also what we thought it was wonky. Like, we didn't know if it was someone impersonating, but we come to find out that it's a mother AI.
It's not even really like an actual person.
Jordan, thanks for on the stream, brother.
Like a hologram. So he asks, well, where's Soji? And he's like, she's on the artifact. And he's like, the captured Borg cube? Like, why would you send her there?
Why would you do that?
Yeah. And he's like, well, the same reason I sent Daj to Earth to find out
what's going on.
Yeah, why, like, what happened with the pulling of the plug on the synth program. Which is... I suspect... Who in this episode says they suspect Federation involvement?
He does.
Oh, yeah. He says he suspects Federation involvement along with the Romulans.
Which confirms our Sarah Connor, Rafi situation where it's something went on with the synths, and Maddox is trying to also find out what the hell it was.
Yep.
Via Daj and Soji.
Yep. Exactly right.
Via Daj and Soji. Now, as the scene progresses, Picard's asking, and again, this is just great writing because, of course, a doctor would suggest this. Like, the dude's been in shock, the dude's got trauma.
I thought nothing of it.
I thought nothing of it either.
I would have to take off my socks to count how many times that happened in TNG. When Picard himself is literally like talking to somebody who's like in sickbay, laying in bed, and Crusher's like, "You leave the fuck alone."
Yeah, they're sick. You need to let them rest. Which is exactly what Jurati tells Picard. She's like, all right, enough. Which, at this point now, I think is because Maddox was about to say too much. And then we get the big time reveal. So Picard leaves, and Jurati is having this very heartfelt conversation with Maddox.
Well, don't we have Picard? Doesn't it follow Picard out first?
Huh?
Doesn't it follow Picard out of the room?
I don't know if it does.
I'm pretty sure it does because like he goes out there and there's Rios and he's like, "Oh, we gonna talk about our stowaway?"
Oh, yeah.
And then he goes and like knocks on the door and
it's
Rafi's in there and she's like,
have that.
"Leave me alone."
You're right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have Maddox who mentions that he sent the sisters to find out what happened, and then you're right. Picard leaves. Rios mentions to him about the stowaway. He knocks on the door. Rafi's like, leave me alone. So we got
welcome back.
So we've got Rafi basically for the entirety. Which I mean, if you didn't suspect that at the very beginning,
then you were a fool.
Then you were a fool because I was like, she's gonna be with us for this entire season. So then it goes back into sick bay, and we get this very heartfelt conversation between Bruce Maddox and Agnes.
A very revealing, heartfelt conversation. So, and at the beginning of this conversation, now I took it at face value the first time I listened to it.
Same.
Because he starts asking questions, so he's like, oh.
By the way, guys, if you don't want to watch the next 5 minutes of this, there are I would consider this a very massive spoiler for the entire show because
we've been spoiling the whole show.
But this one's a big one. Like, it's gonna make you go back to the previous 4 episodes and watch all the interactions with this particular character a whole lot different.
Yeah.
So big spoiler. If you want to not hear it, tune out now. If you want to stick around for the big season or the big episode 5 reveal.
Here we go.
So,
I think you reminded me of Nick Cage in Gone in 60 Seconds when they... You knew it.
Yep.
Let's go. All right. So they started having a conversation, and so it is clear as a result of their conversation that Maddox mentions Daj and Soji to... Jurati, thank you. And she very clearly knows who they are. And Maddox knows that she knows who they are. So this is our first hint.
He actually applauds her for her help.
Yeah, for her help in this. This is our first hint because if you remember in episode, what was it, like 2, when Picard goes to the Daystrom Institute to meet her, episode 1, when he goes to the Nation Institute to meet her for the first time, she was like, nope, not possible at all, no way.
She plays it off like there's no way this can happen. Like, the only person who might be able to like help you with this is Bruce Maddox,
and he's gone, so I don't know what the fuck, can't help you. And he's like, well, I have this necklace, and she's like, in that case, absolutely possible. Here's how it's done.
Right, which now you look at that interaction a lot differently when you go back to it, because it's like at very first pass, and see, this is why the show, I think, like, for people who have been naysaying on the show, and there have been people out there that have been naysaying on it, for people who have been naysaying the show through the first 4 episodes, like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and shill for it. I'll point out to you when I think there's horrid writing, like I have,
and we've done it,
like in this episode with the whole Rafi thing, and you just gotta listen. Like, I'm going to suspend belief on a couple of little points because they're not major plot.
Yeah, they're not show killers,
drivers, or anything like that. They're not show killers. But for people who've been naysaying this show through the first 5 episodes, this is good writing at it. This is good writing at its best. When you take a character and you make their interactions so almost stereotypical, because for me, all of the stuff that I was watching for Girardi through the first 5 episodes was like, she's just like some awkward, quirky scientist nerd.
You're not going to get this because you haven't seen Discovery yet, but she reminds me a lot of Tilly from Discovery, who's like a kind of like wet behind the ears cadet and like really optimistic and really nerdy and goofy, but like wants to be a captain someday, and like
sure, yeah, and just has that kind of quirk to her. But at the same time, like, now you know, after this, like, she was playing Picard from the get,
from the get,
and again, that's why I say props to the writers and props to Alison Pill.
We laud this as good writing for now. Well, we haven't told what happens yet.
I'll let you finish this off, man.
So,
because I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I apologize.
I don't care. As the scene progresses, and Maddox is kind of like reunited with her, and it seems like a loving moment at first. And at first, at least with me anyway, when she's answering these questions and he's asking them, I just kind of was like, oh, you know, that's sweet. But if I had paid attention, then I would have said, like, wait, how the hell does she know about this? How? And then
that was her, I think, of confirming whatever her suspicion was of how much he knew.
Yeah, and so she then proceeds to murder Bruce Maddox.
Yep.
Which, even based on what we saw early in the episode with her, like, kind of reminiscing on the home videos with him, is a giant shock. Well, it's a crumb, but it's not the correct crumb you expect. You expect it to be like a tearful, like, oh my god.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then, but that was like tiny little sand granule crumb. The next crumb that they laid was when she was freaking the hell out.
And the emergency medical hologram
EMH comes up, and it's like you initially think she's freaking out because of like the mission is too stressful. Like even beaming, and you're thinking to yourself this entire time, like, why is beaming somebody up that difficult? You push a button and go like, whoa, and they beam up.
But it's them beaming down because they didn't know how much. She didn't know how much they were going to talk to Maddox before they got back up, and they might have figured out she's full of shit.
And also because I think somewhere in the back of her head, she knew that this is what the outcome was going to be when Maddox came up.
Could be, unless like unless like she beamed them all up, and they were immediately like, "Yo, what the fuck?"
Well,
because that could have happened.
She also,
if they talked to Maddox down on the planet a whole bunch extensively,
true.
Let's say they all got captured and put in a cell together.
True.
She's screwed.
True. That's true. Here's the other thing, too. Like, the reason I think that is because she kept saying to herself, like, you can do this. You need to do this. You have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, how are you pumping yourself up that much
to beam someone
up? Something that's happened, like, thousands of times through all of Star Trek everywhere. Like, how are you this inept at this? But, like,
that's not what she was talking about.
She was talking about having to off him.
Yeah.
Like, she was psyching herself.
As this is happening, she's like, I wish you knew what I knew, like, you'd understand why I'm doing this. Like, I wish I didn't know. I wish they never showed me.
Number 1, what does she know?
Yeah.
Number 2, who are they?
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, what did they show her?
Yeah. And number 4, this is a very interesting choice. So she clearly killed him because she knows a lot more than she's letting on, and she didn't want Maddox to reveal that. But the question is, if she was trying to derail this mission from Jump Street, why didn't she just kill Picard when she had a Romulan disruptor in her hand at his chateau.
Theory. The person that showed her things has a name, and it rhymes with Barak. Narek? Remember, his play is the subtle one.
Of course. Yeah. But there has to be some... She must... So, and to your... Go ahead and say your thing about the Commodore.
The reason that this is such a huge thing for this show is because, like I said, it makes you go back and rewatch old interactions and make you question them even further. So the interaction between her and O, I believe in episode 2, where O is like, yo,
did Picard come visit you?
Did Picard come visit you? We need to have a talk. And then nothing else. And then you get her coming to the chateau, zipping the Tal Shiar and being like, I need to come with you.
Yeah.
I need to come with you. And she's insistent on coming with him.
Yeah.
So my question is, did something happen with Commodore O-Face and her that, like, that's when she was shown, maybe?
Yeah, well, it could be then. But like I said, she was clearly covering up something before that. Because when Picard came...
comes.
So this goes back prior to that interaction, at least. So this is something that they're going to have to be very careful explaining. Why is she along for the ride? Why didn't she just torpedo this mission at any point? She could have, like, killed them all.
Maybe.
Very easily. So there has to be some reason that she's along.
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
What?
Maybe.
She's got a Romulan disruptor and they're all completely helpless. She could have walked in there and smoked all 3 of them.
That's true. Maybe she really didn't know. Maybe she really didn't know when Picard came and talked to her, and maybe...
She had to.
How, though?
Because he said, like, oh, what about, like, Dodge and Soji? Like, how are they? Like, she knew that they existed, and she lied to Picard.
But no, what I'm saying is...
So the deception goes back further.
No, what I'm saying is, maybe the deception doesn't go back that far. See, this is, like... And this is
Unless
good.
she's just lying to protect the fact that they exist.
This is good. This is good that we're talking about this, because this is what a good show is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that she knew about it before the interaction with Picard, and here's why. Because she had the conversation with O afterwards. I really, truly think at Jump, she knew nothing about this. Like, she knew, like, Maddox praised her about her work or whatever, that she was involved with this. But I honestly feel like, or maybe this is just my hope for her character, that she was, like, absolutely corrupted by Commodore O and was like, either you do this for me or, like, I'll destroy your entire existence, sort of thing. But she had that conversation with Commodore O, and then, but see, I see your point. This is where it gets tricky, because after that is when she came to the chateau with the disruptor. But then again, maybe the Commodore was like, listen, you need to play this, like, you can't, like, let them know.
They're going to have to come up with a good
this.
reason why she didn't kill the mission a lot sooner.
See, we're speculating on what it could possibly be.
Yeah, but I don't care what it is, as long as it's a good explanation as to why she's along and not just killing the mission from Jump.
Exactly. If the explanation is to kill the mission from Jump, then that's some terrible writing, because she knew it from the beginning. And why didn't she just zip Picard one of the 2 or 3 or 4 times that she's already had to do it if she wanted to sabotage the mission?
Right. But she's got to be trying to learn something. But the thing is, like, Commodore O already knows where Soji is, so it can't be that.
Yeah, it can't be that. She now, like, and now they all know where she is, the artifact.
Right. And
we see it in the next episode preview.
Yeah, we got, like, the one piece of information that we needed to out of Maddox before they aced him.
Again, MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
MacGuffin. That was, we got Maddox for an episode, and then they zipped him. Literally at the very end of it, so... I mean, this is essentially it. That's the end of the episode. We are left with that massive cliffhanger. Jurati murdering Maddox, with tears in her eyes as she's doing it.
Yeah.
Her mentioning, they showed me this. I wish I didn't know what I know, blah, blah, blah. And just, So we've got a couple of things to unpack here. Again, we've got the Girardi's Maddox relationship, which she ended. We've got what is
quite literally.
We've got the Girardi and whoever it is who showed her these things. Who is it that's pulling her strings from the background? We've got the Rafi relationship. I mean, we do and we don't anymore. She pretty much put a nail in that.
With the sun?
With the sun.
Yeah, there might be some sort of little like bow tie on the end of that.
Maybe
at the end of the show.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Or we might get, they might allude to it through the next few episodes. Whatever.
Yeah.
And we've got Picard essentially. Here's the relationship we have with Picard. We've got Picard, I think, with 3 relationships, which is what makes this good. We've got, and this all goes back to like Greek writing and shit. You got person versus self, you've got person versus person, and you got person versus nature. And that's essentially what you have with Picard right now. You've got Picard dealing with his own self-doubt that he can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. You've got Picard dealing with everybody who doubts that he can actually do this mission. And then you've got Picard dealing with the nature of the galaxy just not being the way it used to be. Mm-hmm. So a lot of different conflicts with this particular show. Obviously, specifically with our main character, which is great. Again, frickin' Patrick Stewart is just a legend. Period.
Pat Stew.
He's just a legend. And you've got all these kind of other threads that are going on. We didn't get any Borg interaction, any cube scenes like you mentioned none. This week. And I don't know that we actually said that on the podcast. We talked about it beforehand, but we got nothing.
No, we mentioned it.
Yeah, we got nothing of the actual cube.
Nothing on the artifact. Nothing from Soji. Nothing from Narek, which is good because I was getting bored of that.
I suspect
we mentioned that there's not much they can do there.
Right. I mean, we've already got the fact that Narek is trying to work his thing, which we already expected.
Oh, he's working his thing.
Many different ways. We see in the preview series, or the preview for the next episode, a lot of Soji, a lot of Narek, a lot of the sister Rizzo, a nice little scene of Picard as Locutus again. That little flash scene of him as Locutus. That was. I knew his Borg. His interaction with the Borg would come into play in this series, and it sure has, man.
It has to. It's one of the most significant things that happened to him as a character.
Well, they've alluded to it in this episode.
Foolhardy to ignore it,
and I think that's why they mentioned it in this episode. I think they allude to it for a specific reason. Rafi and Rios mention it because there's really no other reason for that scene except to establish that. Number one, Picard and 7 of 9 don't really know each other, but they know who one another is. And both of them were Borg. She was a Borg since childbirth, or not childbirth, but since she was a child. And he was converted as, Locutus back in The Next Generation. Yep. And, we get that other scene of,
which means he's got parts in him.
Exactly, he does. And then we get the other scene with, him and 7 of 9
although
talking
Vegeta's
about...
dead, so...
True. Yeah, Vegeta is dead.
Kakarot.
I need to bedazzle you, Vegeta. Anyway, so this is where we end episode 5. Obviously, next week is going to be. See, I think next week's going to be another build-up episode. I was a little wrong in my thought that this was going to be kind of a mid-season climax. Like, I think this was a mid-season. Like, this is what the show is, and this is what the show is not going to be going forward. And you know what I mean?
It's still rising action. I mean, this was a pretty action-packed episode. There was a lot that happened. There was a lot of reveals. There was a lot of twists. You don't really get twists in Star Trek very often unless it's a 2-part episode.
No, you don't. And this one had a big old twist at the very end of it.
Yeah, the fact that this is serialized is gorgeous, and I love it.
Yep. Antonio, thank you for the like, buddy. I appreciate that. Here's the other thing that I will bring up. We have not seen Troy. We have not seen
Riker.
Yeah. Still.
We're halfway through.
We're halfway through the season, and we have not seen either one of them.
Yeah, which makes me curious. Like, I wonder if that's like the denouement in episode 10.
Might be. It could be.
Which would be silly.
It could be. Because, again, the next episode, we see a lot of the Cube. I mean, at this point now, and the reason I don't think that the Cube was in this episode a lot is because those storylines, like, they've been working, like, you know, here's Picard's story and here's Soji's story, and they've been working like this for the last 4 episodes.
They're on a collision course.
And now in episode 6, we're finally going to start to see the intermingling of those storylines, which is why now, like, you're not going to get Picard and then Soji, Picard and Soji. You're going to just get Picard and Soji on the Cube.
Yes. And that's going to be cool. So, like, when Picard and the crew get on there, then Jessie will show up and she'll be all, like, code deciphered. And then Barrett will be like, "Man, it's time, Picard."
Nice Final Fantasy VII reference there. Remake in 2 months, guys. Month and a half. Dude, you know you enjoyed watching me play through that, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And
that's my favorite stream you've ever done.
You weren't awake for it, but I did not this past Sunday, but the previous one. I did that really long stream where I was like leveling up Knights of the Round and Mime and all this other stuff and getting Apocalypse and all.
Did you go beat the weapons?
Oh, I did at like 2 a.m. I popped off another stream for 4 hours and beat the weapons at the end of it. And I was like, we're done with Final Fantasy VII on to Final Fantasy X now. I beat him already. I beat him at like level 60, so I could go back and be like 1 Knights of the Round.
Yeah.
You know, W summon Knights of the Round and just wipe them off the face of the earth. Because that's all it takes, pretty much. Sephiroth. Anyway, guys, so I think at this point we're going to go ahead and end up the podcast. I want to thank everybody for coming on out, throwing likes and whatnot on the stream. Thank you guys very much for coming and watching. Again, I am planning another series like this, but with my boys Royal, Cynical, and Cypher to talk about gaming developing, like just an ongoing series to talk about gaming studios, games in general, developers, and kind of the things that are going on in the gaming industry, you know, right now. So more details on that to come. I want to finish this Picard series review with my buddy before we move on to anything else.
We halfway through.
Yeah, we are halfway through the season 1 of Picard, everybody. It has been a lot of exposition, a lot of like.
So I said this online today. It's a tall task they have.
Oh yes,
because they have to world build.
Yeah,
they have to catch you up on old characters and old favorites, and they've got to introduce new characters, and they've got to move the plot along, all while doing all that.
Yep, in basically like 40-minute episodes. Every week.
It's a tall task.
It's not easy, and I think they're doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So far, the story is compelling. There's, you know, obviously connections to Data with Soji and Daj. Picard is clearly at the beginning of the season out of his elements, but he is slowly working his way back to the captain we kind of all knew him as.
Yeah, but he's going to have to adapt.
Oh yeah, he's going to have to adapt.
The game has changed. The game is afoot.
The game is definitely changed. I'll play your game. That's what he needs to say right now. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming on out tonight. I want to thank you all for the likes and the shares on the stream. And we will see you all again next week when we review episode 6. But make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. We'll have some Apex Legends. I will have some Apex Legends for you tomorrow and some Red Dead Redemption 2 tomorrow evening.
I'll probably pop on and say hello.
And yeah, make sure you guys tune in and say hey. Otherwise, have a good rest of your evening, Panda Fam. I will see you on the flip side. Take care, everybody.